Today, we're going to answer another simple question. What is a scale? We're also going to talk about how to build the major scale, which is extremely important for understanding the fundamentals of music theory. If you can commit to learning the basics of theory, it's going to help you make sense of everything else. You've probably all seen charts and posters filled with notes and chords and scales, and it probably seems really overwhelming and maybe even impossible to memorize everything that you see written. But what if I told you that it's all just related to the same pattern, the major scale? Now, before we get right into scales, let's just quickly review what a key is. In our last lesson, we learned the basics of musical keys. We learned that there are 12 notes that repeat at different pitches in Western music. These pitches are the same for guitar, piano, harmonica, whatever you have. Now, these 12 notes don't always sound good being played together, so we just choose 7 of them, which do sound good together. This is a key. A key is simply a group of 7 of those 12 notes, and if we use those notes to create melodies and chords and put it all together, it's generally going to sound good to our ears. The big question now is, how do we know which 7 notes to choose? This is where scales come in. A scale is simply a pattern or a formula that tells us which 7 notes to choose to create our key. The most common scale is the major scale. This scale is made up of half steps and whole steps, which are just measures of distance. Each one of our 12 notes is just a half step away from the next. A whole step is just 2 half steps, or you could think of it as skipping over a note. This is what a half step looks like on guitar. And this is what a whole step looks like on guitar. Here is our pattern for the major scale. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Whole, half, whole, half. Say it back to me because this is where all the magic is. Whole, half, whole, half. 2 whole steps, half step. 3 whole steps, half step. Take a look at our 12 notes and remember that some of them have more than one name, which you can see here. Now let's pick a starting point for our scale, also known as the root note. Let's start with the note A. We are going to create the A major scale. The first note of our scale is A. A whole step away from A is B. A whole step away from B is C sharp. A half step away from C sharp is D. A whole step from D is E. A whole step from E is F sharp. A whole step from F sharp is G sharp. And a half step brings us all the way back to our root note again, which is A. We have just created the A major scale. We chose our starting point or our root note, which was A. We applied our major scale pattern and thus created the key of A major. The root note plus the scale pattern equals the key. Now you might be wondering why I chose C sharp and not D flat. And that's simply because in every major scale, we need to use at least one version of every letter in our musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If I had chosen D flat, I would also have D. I would have 2 versions of D and nothing for C. So I chose C sharp. And we'll get more into how to choose sharps versus flat in a later video. The important thing now is the pattern. Let's take a look at a couple more examples on the guitar. How about we play the E major scale? And let's use our E string or our first string. So there's our root note, our open first string, E. The next note is a whole step away, so we are going to skip over the first fret and land on the second, which is F sharp. Next we have another whole step to G sharp. Then we go a half step up to A, whole step to B, whole step to C sharp, whole step to D sharp, and finally one more half step back to E. E major. Let's do another, but this time we're going to start on a different string and a different fret. Let's start on the 3rd fret of the D string. So our root note is F, so we're going to create the F major scale. F is our first note. We go up a whole step to G, another whole step up to A, a half step now up to B flat, a whole step up to C, another whole step up to D, another whole step up to E, and our half step to get us up to F once again. And there is F major. There are many other scales and modes out there, but this pattern is the key to almost all of them. You must commit this to your memory if you wish to understand any of the more complicated areas of music theory. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Say it with me one more time, please. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. In the future, we'll talk about other ways we can play the major scale on our guitars rather than just on one string. We'll also talk about ways that we can more easily memorize the different note names for each key. I highly recommend that you take some time to play this major scale pattern on different strings of your guitar. You could even start at different frets, different root notes, and take a pen and paper, maybe write out the different note names of each key. We really just want to get familiar with the pattern and commit it to our memory. If you are uncertain where the notes are on your guitar or where to start, go ahead and watch my video on note names. That's all I have for now. Till next time.